last old school comedians of the working men clubs and was genuinely working class. But Peter Kay says he wrote the part of club owner Brian Potter in Phoenix Nights for Bernard Manning. He thought he would have been perfect casting, but he was in poor health. Kay took the role himself. Bernard Manning is controversial. He had incredible timing. Would he have been a Peter Kay or a gag writer like Jimmy Carr?
I don't want to belittle what all of us do for a job, but I'm about to. I don't think great timing makes you a genius.
Right. Do you agree with that? I mean, I don't know how many people listening to this have stood on stage with a microphone attempting to digest their 10th Imodium and hold their bum cheeks together. But it's definitely one of the scariest things you will ever do. And I don't care, even if I sit stony-faced and silent through a comedian. If the rest of the room is laughing, I just give respect because I know how hard it is. And he was just someone. As he would say, I wasn't going there by accident. He had something, didn't he, Leo?
Yeah, and he is a product of his time. If he was around now, he wouldn't be doing racist stuff because that's, that would be... He got away with it in the 70s, but there's no way anybody would book him. Maybe like a couple of clubs in the north of England or somewhere, you know what I mean? But like, there's no way he'd be able to get away with that sort of material now. But he'd take those skills, that writing, that timing, and that sort of stage presence, and he'd be doing other stuff. And also, I mean, we don't know what's going to be offensive about our material now.
Yeah.
It's going to be offensive in 10 years' time, 20 years' time.
Kale. I think people will look back at us using pronouns in 200 years and crackle out ignorance.
Oh, I mean, yeah, you look at, there are people who think that Friends, the comedy in Friends, which felt like a very innocuous 2D sitcom at the time,
sure.
It's problematic now.
Sure.
It's society says, I mean, also, it's for a different audience, it is for a different time. That is, I think, it's impossible not to acknowledge that.
Well, I'm interested to know if Leo did grow up watching that type of comedy, because in my house I had zero contact with stand-up. I come from ultra council estate backgrounds. We weren't like going to the theatre at the weekend. It was like curry, sleep, back to work, and then when you're 16, over the park by the dog shit rooms to buy the 2020. That was my childhood. Yeah. So the only contact I had was the odd VHS tape coming through the house, Jimmy Jones, Roy Chubby Brown. Yeah. What type of thing was on in your house?
Yeah, I mean, we're big Billy Connolly fans, but also Jerry Sadowitz, who, funnily enough, does, far more offensive.
Up on Jerry Sadowitz.
Yeah, my mum doesn't Jerry Sadowitz when we're like 14. And so he says stuff that's like far more offensive than Bernard Manning, but he gets away with it because he puts himself in a place where everywhere is punching up. And it's a character rather than, it's not like Bernard. I think the dangerous thing about Bernard Manning is almost watching his material, even if it's funny, it's legitimising racism, sexism, homophobia for the people who are watching. And even if he wasn't racist, sexist, and homophobic in his personal life, he's legitimising it for his audience.
That is a fantastic place to jump into Envelope 2. Excellent segue.
Yes. Bernard Manning's comedy was massively popular and influential, and it was fueled by real hatred and prejudice.
Yeah, this is the paradox. This is a quote from Oliver Double. His was an aggressive stain. That's fine. His was an aggressive strain of stand-up comedy with jokes told at the expense of women, homosexuals, although he did have one joke he told me. He said, I could never be a homosexual, couldn't do it. I couldn't take rejection from men and women. But particularly ethnic groups. He claimed to draw the line at jokes about the disabled, sick gags, crippled and all that carry on.
Pool on the roof deck.
But
The infinity pool is like a knife. It starts fun, then goes on forever.
Which our audience loves. He had Asians in the audience who he referred to, and I just will not say that word, E-word, and people of black descent who he picked out to ridicule, and he would cheerfully tell the rest of the audience they would lynch his unfortunate victim after the show. When he appeared on the missing
Okay, the networks are down, the equipment is ready, and we've
Britons. They think they're English because they're born here, but that means if a dog's born in the stable, it's a horse. Marlon?
All right.
It's become a point that's so offensive to sort of laugh at the punch.
Yeah.
Almost.
And the awful.
The awfulness of it.
So awful.
That's a comic hat on it. You've got the other hat has an afro that's on it as well. So
I want one of those, I'm in trouble.
With that one, I sit and I go, nah, can't have it. That's disgusting. No, it's distasteful. No, it's wrong. But then the comic side, it makes sense because 2 plus 2 is 4. It's comedy, it makes sense. So my brain goes, okay, that's funny, and then I go, oh no, that's wrong.
And do you know the other thing when I read it that really weirded me out? Do you know what I thought of? Jermaine Greer. She used exactly the same sentence about transsexual people. She's like, a transsexual player, you know, if I have ears doesn't make me a spaniel.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make you a woman. And I'm like, wow, she's on the left.
Yeah.
And she's using the same logic.
Flippin' X. She's teetering on the edge.
Yes.
Of having fallen off of everything. It's but it's a very binary tunnel view, isn't it? It's exactly that thing. You are one thing or you are another thing, and it shows that you can't think in a very complex way about the difference between other human beings.
Leo, what do you make of this? I imagine an Indian should be in India, an Eskimo should be in Iceland, where Eskimos don't live, Belen, and an Englishman should be in England. Don't applaud that one, audience. They're always singing about their island in the sun, these people, but they're never there, are they? I think England is the most marvellous place in the world. I stop here, I live here, I pay tax here. Australia, New Zealand, India, don't interest me in the least. What the fuck do we do with that, Leo?
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like my geography teacher at school. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And it seems to be coming to the fore again with Brexit and the rise of UKIP and the Brexit Party. This sort of parochial Little England attitude, and it's weird. And you see it in Scotland as well with the SNP. And I don't know. Like, I think people have got to realise that immigrants aren't coming here because it's a great place. They're coming here because they can't get into somewhere better. Like.
Eric's my university.
Stirling Polytechnic and
There's an interesting point in how you say this when John uses when he's being interviewed on things and saying this stuff. And we talked about Joe Sadowitz playing a very clever game of status so that everybody does punching up, etc. Bernard Manning said that he's a persona. He never said he's a character. You know, he's not Al Murray. He's not done. It is him. But he would say that off stage, I don't have any malice at all towards these people. And I think there's, and this is a friend, a fellow comedian, Delisa Chaponda, made this point, and I think it's a brilliant point to me when we're talking about this conversationally. And he's been on this podcast, I know. He would say so often people that do offensive comedy historically that we now see as offensive, although there were people at the time that found Bernard Manning offensive. It's of course he says it's just jokes, it's just silly, and in the moment on stage it is just jokes, it's just silly. And I think it's something really, really interesting in the fact that Twin will then challenge on it.
Right.
You've seen it happen with Jim Davison, with all of them. If you then go, well, isn't that really upsetting? Aren't you punching down? Whatever, isn't this offensive? It's then the reaction to that is a defensive doubling down and a really tucking into those subjects, and this kind of like, England is in England, that's when you're like, well, now I'm seeing the malice. This isn't silly anymore. You can defend it. If you're not going to go, it's a character, I don't think those things. If you're then going to try and double down on it and defend it and tuck in harder into that style of comedy, which is perpetuating hate,
Right.
that's where I think you see the malice.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, just to challenge that a bit. I mean, he did say, "I have a go at everybody on stage, joke, nothing more." But I don't go. They go on about me being racist, but so is every comedian. They just single me out. And he used this all the time. It's just a persona. Right. I mean, you yourself, there is a gap. Would you agree between some of the?
Yeah, I think anytime you get on stage, you're not entirely being yourself. You're taking, and comedians take. We take angles. We take an extreme view on things because that's where the funniness is.
And we're not tied to the truth.
Yeah, we'll take the truth and we'll stretch it. It'll be our own personal truth to get an extreme thing to get a reaction. I think what's interesting about Bernard Manning is he's maybe people single him out more than other people because he's working class. Like if you're middle class and you do racist stuff, then you can say, being ironic. Like Al Murray, he went to Oxbridge. Like if you're an Oxbridge graduate, you do this stuff. People give you the benefit of the truth. They assume you're being ironic. Whereas if you're, a working class club comedian, it's like, oh, this is your manifesto, this is your, like, definitely what you definitely think.
I've got a fantastic example for this. I mean, it's funny and it's not funny. When Bernard Manning died, they were discussing his work on 5 Live. After the presenter read a joke out, one of the guests talked about why it wasn't funny, showing how outdated his attitudes were towards disabled people, and said it was a good thing, that sort of humour was no longer acceptable. The presenter then said it was a Jimmy Carr joke on TV a week earlier. Does Leo have a point that sometimes what people are objecting to is the teller of the joke, like you don't have the right to tell it because you come from a working class background? I think so.
I get that myself as well, because it seems to say that whatever I do is quite likeable, and I'm warm, and I'm fluffy, but I've got dark thoughts. If I came out and said it on stage, no one's going to accept it.
I feel like with a little encouragement, I can get you to say whatever.
Here's the thing. With Bernard, I don't think that he could do it. He grew up in something like that. That's what if you were talking about if he was still around today, he would still come to see people they want to hear.
The other game I was gonna play, which is too cool, we don't have time, but I was gonna read out 10 jokes. Some were gonna be extreme left comments, some were gonna be ironic comments, ironic questions, some were gonna be Bernard Manning. And it is a problem to tell them apart. And there is a sort of class prejudice that's acceptable. We're not excusing anything Bernard Manning said about race.
No, it's a brilliant point. It's not, and it's an injustice. Absolutely, that certain people can say, but also it doesn't matter who's saying a joke, because then the direction of the punching matters.
Yes.
The ownership of the material matters.
So do we all agree stand-up comedy should always punch upwards and not down?
No, I think there's no up or down. I think the idea of saying these people are down, that's insulting to them.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
You don't believe in white privilege at all.
white privilege? No, I mean, I think there's white privilege. I don't think everybody's got the same amount of white privilege. Someone like Benedict Cumberbatch has got a lot more.
He's not white.
I mean, I'm from Dumfries. Not have a level. And there's so much other stuff. I mean, this country is the privilege you look. Well, if you're good looking, you're definitely going to get that job. You know what I mean?
Come on, man, that's not fair.
It's true.
So we can't simplistically agree about punching downwards and upwards. It's problematic.
And there's brilliant comedians working today who punch in all sorts of directions, and there's still brilliant comedy to be made out of it. But complicated.
Just to challenge you on that a bit, Leo. Okay, at the beginning, he's in Ancoats. He definitely has a working class background, a lot more hardcore than mine because of the time. And so, I've lived in every level of accommodation you can live in: mother and baby shelter, council flat, council house, private house, nice house. Oh, nice flat I did as well. But so, am I being a bit fraudulent when I go on stage? My dad this, my dad. There comes a point where you're no longer poor working class man. You're wearing that mantle. Now, I don't wear that mantle to carry on punching the wrong thing. But it was like Bernard Manning. I started with my feet. I'm always watching past outside. I went to keep England wide. It's like those three things, what's going on there? Does he lose that status regardless of what he sounds like? Do you lose the status? You can have a Dumfries accent, but if you start filling arenas...
No, I still live in a really shit house. He's been the persona his audience wanted him to be, so the audience was still, working class rather than people, so,
And then he gives to people what they want. That's it.
Yeah, and I think, the northern working class communities and Scotland as well would have felt threatened in the 70s and 80s. There was a lot of social upheaval, a lot of change in the job market, immigration, all the rest of it. So maybe, they provide this anchor to themselves, to some nostalgic way, like Mirage does.
Could it be argued that if people think these things, it's better to get them out? The Jewish writer Howard Jacobson said that Manning's act was an important social function by sending us into the basement of our own natures, such scurrility lances the boil and enables the pus to run. So this is the argument that if we sanitise too much, it goes that sort of Tommy Robinson underbelly is fed. Whereas if we go full Sadowitz, we lance the boil. What do you think of that, Mark? It's a very controversial thing to say.
I don't know what you just said.
If I do material that on the surface is racist, but brings the pus and poison out into the open, it lances the boil and we can attack it, discuss it, get it out in the open in a way that gets rid of it better than everyone going, no jokes about this, no jokes about that, and pushing it underground.
Yeah, they don't like that. So if you're going to bring it up, and let people see it and then deal with it, rather than it's just underlying and it's...
So if Bernard, I just want to push my line, so if Bernard Manning was alive, let's make it 20 years, just 10, 15 years younger, he's just still about alive, he's just booked a Pleasance Courtyard, would you rather he goes on stage and does it, people have their opinion, rather than we all protest he's not allowed to perform at Pleasance Courtyard, which would you prefer?
I want him to go on and do it.
Yeah, me too. But also, the question assumes that there's only one way of doing that. Like, and I think there are still comedians, Doug Stanhope, for example, who are absolutely lancing the boil, but not in a way where you would ever come away thinking any one group of people will say or inferior to any other group. There are very, very clever ways of still talking about race, disability, inequality within all groups of people and see realism. I don't agree with everything in Doug Stanhope's comedy, but it's brilliant comedian, I would say. I don't think so. Censorship is the answer. Saying you can't play those gigs, surely. Used to do that, but then it'd be fascinating to see. Imagine if he was alive, the conflict between the people that were going for the two different reasons to see him do what he does and did.
I think it's interesting what the lancing the boil analogy, because we're seeing at the moment comedians are being forced to be more like politicians. We've got to really think and make sure we don't offend anybody and transgress.
Joe Brown the other week.
Transgress against any of these rules that the sort of liberals have laid out for us. And because of that, the comedians are becoming the politicians. They're saying the outrageous things, like Boris and Donald Trump are saying outrageous things, and people are voting for them. So the trouble, comedy happens out in the public, so it's sort of a jury. The vote happens in private, in the ballot box, so anybody can do that. Don't worry about
We're better than politicians, Leo. We're not that qualified.
I do find Alex Salmon quite funny. Do you think that humour cannot be controlled or policed? That's what he said. He instinctively seemed to understand this. Humour cannot be controlled or policed. They can't stop us laughing, can they? They can't. So he took the laugh as the evidence of the freedom of what we do. What do you think of that? Is it okay if it's offensive? That everyone's laughing?
I think people won't laugh at someone they find dislikable or laugh at things that they don't agree with or at least see the sort of logic in.
Marlon?
The laughter's an acknowledgement of the fact that you actually agree to whatever the statement is. So, yeah, of course, it works.
So, but that's a sort of almost a political act then. So if we're laughing, but it's a racist conceit, my laugh is like a... we know it's
I don't know that
why do I laugh when someone falls over there? If someone falls over, I'm like,
but it is, I don't think laughter, real laughter is totally involuntary. We've probably all done it. Sometimes you get a joke, it's a joyous thing. You definitely will. When you get a joke and you do it and an audience goes, oh. And it's a really funny sound for a comedian listening to an audience stop themselves mid-laugh. They don't laugh and then go, I'm decided to be offended. And actually, everyone listening to any comedy has a right to be offended by it, and every comedian has a right not to care.
There's a filter that kicks in when you're laughing at a joke. So I think this is what we go back to the lance and the boil thing. Because my humour's not changed because I'm not exciting enough to have ever said anything Doug Stanhope or Bernard Manning or Jerry Sadowitz. I'm just talking about myself and my family. But I've noticed, I don't think I'm giving anything away, maybe to the ladies, that the boys' WhatsApp group is a place where the underbelly of real disgusting humour comes through. So the stuff you never see, stuff you never see on the internet, you never see on Facebook, you never hear people telling down the pub, bubbles through on the boys' WhatsApp. And I don't mean to be sexist, because I know you come together to the girls' WhatsApp group, fancy magic wrist. Like, I had a look and it's like pictures of Willies and he's quite sexually explicit. But let's split up with Tommy and here's a picture of a Willie. And it's disgusting, though. But then let's have a look at the boys' WhatsApp group. Oh, God, I split up with Debbie. Oh, here's a goat breaking off a tall. And then you're like, oh my God. I'm sorry. That's what it's like.
I don't know what to say really. I'm in some WhatsApp groups full of women and it's disgusting and very on the edge politically, etc. I think it does happen.
But do you not?
Certainly with groups of women who think
But even better then, because that means across the book. What does that tell you?
it's a freedom within that in small groups, but it'd be the equivalent of sitting around with those, say, 3 people, 4 people in that group around the table.
Could that be a technological evidence of things being pushed digitally underground? We're laughing at some special thing, laughing at disgusting things I wouldn't dare speak out loud. Of course,
and we're only 1 week WhatsApp group away from our careers being destroyed.
This is the thing. He claimed to be a great believer in family values. He never swore in front of his mother, saying, I myself what mother no places, didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't take drugs, never been a womanizer, I was brought up with good parents, I've never been in trouble or harmed no one, and I love my family. Now, how important is it that his private life was exemplary? We've done Richard Pryor on this show, which most comedians universally worship, and he was a fantastic comic, but what an arsehole of a man. What a crack pipe smoking, woman beating nightmare of a wastrel he was.
Yeah, but I think he was honest about it. He didn't pretend he was. You knew if you went back to Richard Pryor's hotel room, he was going to set you on fire with a crack pipe. That was it. It was honesty.
A predictability, a safety in that predictability.
Private or public, which matters? Marlon. It matters, does it? Leo, does it?
I think, private matters obviously, but public really matters because he's sort of legitimising that behaviour and those opinions amongst the people who watch him.
I think we really need to get on to envelope 3.
Okay. Envelope 3, when a comedy act crosses over into real life.
So I have got his bank to rights on a couple of occasions. In 1994, Bernard Manning was doing his usual kind of material at a charity gig hotel in Derbyshire. He spotted 2 black waitresses in the room. Guess what? He made a series of sexually and racially charged comments directed at them. They said the experience was horrible, like being at a National Front meeting, and they appealed to an industrial tribunal against the management of the hotel for racial discrimination. They lost, but later the decision was overturned at appeal, and they won an undisclosed sum. Surely, Leo, got it.
Oh yeah, that shows sort of the real, actual, it really crystallises the sort of harm and the hurt it can cause.
Did he just stay true to his acting persona? And he's like, well, I'm not going to waver, and it sort of backfired in a way he wasn't playing out in his mind?
I don't know, it's like, I think you've got to reinvent yourself a bit. Look at Madonna, she reinvents herself with every album. You can't just be coming out with the same, hack racist stuff you're doing in the 70s.
But you wouldn't.
I love
Which is, if it's like singling out people in the room,
Yeah.
That's a horrible thing to do.
You can't come and whimsical sort of act.
So do you think he was right to hold, even though he's disgusting, and you must be appalled by what I said, there's something as the comedian part of you admires his unholy bird. Well, that is a stunning statement from the Marlon Davis Instagram. And, Jess, does that shock you hearing Marlon say something like that?
I remember sometimes their opinion.
Act shocked, Jess.
Sorry, it's shocking, Marlon. Think about it from those 2 women's point of view. The idea that anybody, let alone people who have got so many layers down the privilege tree as those 2 women did in that situation, they're working there in a tertiary service job, they're less privileged because of the colour of their skin, they're less privileged because they're women, and they're in that situation, they're made to feel that uncomfortable, singled out. What a piece of shit Bernard Manning is.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like you just removed the tension from which way you'll vote. Well, we've reached that time where we must vote. And do you know what? I didn't think I was going to be here. Obviously, Jeff, I've got a good idea. We don't need to be Columbo to work out what you're going to say. But I'm looking at my other 2 panellists, and I can't call this. So I'm going to go to the Jess Foster-Q first, and Bernard Manning.
Voilà, ça roule, mais là.
I don't think I have had to really think about this. I've really enjoyed learning about him. I think he's a fascinating character, and I genuinely think you're asking me to pick between 2 such extremes. But honestly can't see him as a genius, even as a comedic technician. But I understand that's because it's anachronistic and I just can't enjoy the comedy. It's not for me. I genuinely didn't understand some of the jokes because they're so old-fashioned, so they just don't work on my humour buttons.
Okay.
But in terms of the content of his stuff, you are agreeing with someone. You are making groups of people, horrible, hate-filled opinions normalised when you do that. So evil.
First vote is in. I'm gonna. I feel like Marlon Davis should go next.
For me to say that because I don't mean due to the colour of my skin. It's not even to do with me being a comedy act. He's just evil.
Second vote's in. So the tension now is only, will there be unanimity? I think it's dawning on a lot of people now that Bernard Manning isn't the turkey guy. That's Bernard Matthews. So. I certainly just realised. Oh, he's just been a racist fucker with all his turkeys, but I'm just hearing in my earpiece different people altogether. Leo.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of Bernard Manning stuff when I was preparing for this. I'm not going to lie, I laughed an awful lot, and it made me nostalgic for the time when comedians told jokes instead of just wanking on about some tragic thing that happened to them.
New look is going down well.
That's me and you, Marlon.
I don't remember.
But yeah, like Jessica says, he's singled out, marginalised communities and also specific people. I mean, those two waitresses in the room to single them out and make them feel horrible. That's just a horrible, shitty thing to do. So yeah, evil.
That's it. It's unanimous. Bernard Manning. Evil. Backed by an audience who laughed and applauded at every single one of the 8 Bernard Manning jokes that I did at the top of the show. What have we learned? Absolutely nothing! Thank you so much to my wonderful panel. Leo Kearse, Jessica Foster, Marlon Davis, me, Marlon Davis, thanks for listening to Evil Genius from BBC Radio 4. Past episodes on BBC Sounds, you're actually featuring our brilliant panellists, Desiree Burge, Catherine Bohart, and Alan Carr on their John Lewis verdict. Hit subscribe now. It's what your fingers were given to you for. That and swearing at people you don't like from other countries. See you next time. Goodbye!
Hello, I just wanted to tell you about my new podcast. It's called Classical Fix, and it's basically me, Clemmy Burthill, each week talking to a massive music fan. I mix them a classical playlist. They have a listen, they come in, and we just see where the conversation goes. If you'd like to give classical music a go, but you haven't got a clue where to start, this is where you start. To subscribe, go to BBC Sounds and search for Classical Fix. Now then, as you were.
This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Warning, this episode contains strong language. Genius. Welcome to Evil Genius from BBC Radio 4. Bernard Manning, lovely bloke. Margaret Thatcher, green pioneer, saviour of the planet. But Mother Teresa, she got off on watching poor people die slowly on concrete floors. This is BBC Radio 4's Evil Genius, a filthy ministry of truths, where we find inconvenient details from the past, then sick them up all over your favourite heroes and villains, like a dog that ate an Easter egg. By the end of today's frenzied fact carpet bombing, my mind-bent panel of funny people will have to simplistically vote one way or the other, evil or genius. I don't want any, it's more complicated than that, and no, can I have some Savlon for my butthurt offence? No, you will vote. And today, it's Whitney Houston. She could belt out a ballad with more volume than my hair. But was she more evil than genius. And the awful musicality of my special effects machine could bring her back from the grave to punch me in the face. I introduce my amazing panel. We've got Athena Kublenu. Check out her podcast, Keeping Athena Company. Jodie Mitchell, comedian, drag king, and one of the voices behind the LOL Word and the Secret Dinosaur Cult podcast, Stegosaurus. And Dane Baptiste, just a fact junkie himself. A nerd after my own heart, and just about to head out on his own world tour. Chocolate Chip, I have to say, very funny tour title, in 2020. So today, I'm going to be asking you to make a decision about Whitney Houston. But have you already decided? Panel. Whitney took Dolly Parton's song, I Will Always Love You. I mean, I'm so paranoid about paying the rights. So I'm actually going to have to say it in a robot voice. She took the song, I Will Always Love You, and made it her own. But I want to know, are you Team Dolly or Team Whitney? Before we even get going, Athena.
I'm Team Dolly, actually.
Go on.
Yeah, I'm Team Dolly because not a lot of people respect Dolly Parton and her contributions to the music world in general. Also, I like the fact that I know that Dolly Parton wrote I Will Always Love You. That's like, I'm not very good at trivia. The trivia I do have, I have to hold on to the prize. But I just always felt sorry for Dolly Parton, so Jolene. You know that song where she's begging the man to go out and take her man? And I like that. Like, she really lost one man. Don't take the song away from her.
But ironically, taking one song in 1995. Jodie?
I'm Team Whitney. You know, I'm sure that she took the song in a perfectly understandable way. I'm sure she was allowed to take the song. She can't help it and amazing at singing the song. I know that Dolly does a lot of good charitable works, but I love Whitney. What can I say?
Okay.
It's a tough one. It is a tough one. And I'm glad, and I think Athena's raised some very good points where Dolly Parton is concerned. And Dolly, I feel like, as far as I'm aware, there's not been any kind of like social media based faux pas on her part. Also, she the song Kenny Rogers, the Star. Yeah. So she has very well contributed by the sample to a lot of that, and has never spoken negatively about that fact. Yeah, Team Whitney. I don't know. For me, there's something about black women balladeers where I'm just constantly bored, and she's just one of them. Like, and I've not seen vocally. I don't know if there's anyone around now that can still touch her, because like
Sunita is still alive. So, that's true. Whitney Houston, born in Newark, New Jersey in August 1963. Her mother was the gospel singer Cissy Houston. Her cousin, the pop star Dionne Warwick. Music was in Whitney's DNA. She began singing with her church's gospel choir in early age. In 1983, she signed with Arista Records under Clive Davis. She produced hit after hit, including Saving All My Love For You and Greatest Love of All. I've got no choice, I will sing them. And I Want to Dance, I Want to Dance with Somebody. I mean, I even did it a bit, even the robots, man. I Want to Dance with Somebody.
that'll make AI become a fortune.
I listen to it all the time. It's really hard. It was in 1992, co-star with Kevin Costner, who just sort of like all the dads from my childhood in the bodyguard.
Even Gerard Depardieu.
After that, she went truly stratospheric. The same year, she married her fellow pop star, Bobby Brown. That was her prerogative. Thank you. And she began a downward spiral of drug abuse. Boo. On the 11th of February 2012, she was found drowned in the bathtub at her hotel in Beverly Hills. She was 48. 3 years later, her daughter, Bobby Christina, died aged 22 after being found face down in a bathtub, a chilling echo of Whitney's own death. That's Whitney, and we will always love her. But will we decide she's an evil or a genius? Let's find out. And the panel has, as always, the 3 envelopes full of facts about this amazing woman, this pioneer of balladeering. So let's crack on with envelope number 1. Who has it?
I have it here. Okay.
You open it.
Ah, madam, what can I do for you? I'll have a housekeeper sent up immediately.
As long as it's generic.
Back to what? She paved the way. Arguably, without Whitney Houston, there would be no Mariah Carey, Beyonce, or Rihanna. She has had more consecutive number ones than the Beatles and was the first black female artist to have heavy rotation on MTV.
Yeah, I mean, there is some argument if you removed her from the taxonomy, from the evolution of music.
Hello, madam. How can I help you today? Temporarily unavailable.
Music. Would we have all of the artists we have today? Is she the patient zero?
Well, I think we would, okay, because she signed to Arista, right, by Clive Davis, and I'm pretty sure Clive Davis dealt with, I might be making this up, but anyway, he signed so many artists, he would have just signed someone else. You know, like, it's a big machine, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So even though I personally love Whitney Houston, absolutely.
So there is some argument that, yes, totally understand what you're saying, but there is some argument, Jodie, that Clive Davis could have put someone else in that seat. Once Whitney started singing and we heard the God-given celestial gift that was her voice, something changed. I cannot argue for the genius of her songwriting. She hardly wrote or contributed to any of her material. If we're going to talk about genius, it needs to be vocal interpretation. Mm-hmm. There is very little evidence that there were many stand there and sing people before her. Everyone had a band. Don't care who they were. It's Frank Sinatra and the band. She's the first one whose voice was so amazing, everything fell away. You know, like you see a rocket go off and just before it hits space, everything falls away and there's just the astronauts there. She's the first person with just the voice was left. That's the genius. Clive Davis might have picked someone else, but would he accidentally have had that effect? Jodie?
So I don't think that he would necessarily have picked someone else who was as good as Whitney, or like Whitney is obviously a genius. She's obviously incredible. She's so talented.
Well, you mean on a vocally interpreted level?
Yeah, totally. But I think the idea that I think it takes away agency from like other black female artists to be like they wouldn't have happened without Whitney. And like talent just spurts up out of the ground, right? Talent exists.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that imagery